Good evening, you're watching The Buck Stops here. I'm Vishnu Shom. The big news coming in, India have chased down a target of 360 to win the second one-day international versus Australia in Jaipur just now. India's chase of 360 is the second highest successful run chase in the history of one-day cricket. Virat Kohli has hit the fastest 100 by an Indian in one-day international cricket. He reached his 16th one-day international 100 in 52 balls. Rohit Sharma was the highest scorer for India, remaining unbeaten on 141 of 123 deliveries. But let's now move on to our big focus this evening. If I'm a conspirator in the coal scam, then why isn't the Prime Minister also a conspirator? That's what the former Coal Secretary PC Parakh wants to know. A day after the CBI decided to file an FIR against Parakh and Kumaramangalam Birla, one of India's biggest industrialists in the coal scam. Several key questions remain. The key question, by targeting the entire system, including PC Parakh, the man identified as a whistleblower in the case, is there an effort to reduce the alleged role of the Prime Minister? Has the CBI gone terribly wrong in targeting the whistleblower in this case, a man reputed for his integrity?
If it is a conspiracy, then there are a couple of conspirants. Mr. Birla, who made a request, he is a conspirant. I, who examined and made a recommendation, I am a conspirant. And the PM who took a decision is also a conspirant.
PC Parakh, first a whistleblower, now an accused, lashing out against the Central Bureau of Investigation, which has filed an FIR against him in the coal scam. Ironically, the former Coal Secretary was the first man to push for transparency by advocating the use of bids to decide coal block allocations. His letters in 2004 to the then Minister of State for Coal Dashri Narayan Rao and Cabinet Secretary B.K. Chaturvedi were completely ignored. Later, Parakh's letters were upheld by the CAG when they submitted their report on the coal scam. Now the CBI alleges Parakh favoured Kumaramangalam Birla, promoted Hindalco. They claim the former Coal Secretary overturned the screening committee's recommendation and gave the coal block to Hindalco, and that he met with Kumaramangalam Birla personally before the decision was taken. Parakh says he did nothing wrong.
Mr. Kumaramangalam Birla made a representation to Prime Minister that this has been an unfair decision for us because we were the first applicant, we are equally competent, and the case should be reviewed. He also met me and made a similar representation. I felt that there is some merit in his representation and matter needs to be reconsidered. So I re-examined the matter and then I made a suggestion that apart from Navali, we can also include Hindalco in this coal block. They can make a joint venture and operate it as a joint venture company. This recommendation was approved by the Prime Minister as Coal Minister, and I find there is absolutely nothing wrong in it.
Parakh's words about the Prime Minister, however, music to the opposition's ears, which has renewed its demand for an investigation against Dr. Singh in the coal scam.
Time has come for Parakh to speak up. He has spoken a little. He should come out clean now, make public statements of how files were disposed of at that time, how chits were received from the Congress party headquarters in the PMO.
I don't think it is important as to what the BJP has to say, because all that they have been doing is saying for the last 10 years.
To date, the CBI has filed 14 FIRs in the coal scam. But is it just the tip of the iceberg? With Uma Sudhir in Hyderabad, Sunitra Chaudhary for NDTV.
Well, more details are now emerging of why the CBI feels there is a great deal of merit in filing an FIR against both Kumaramangalam Birla and PC Parakh, the former Coal Secretary. My colleague Sunitra Chaudhary has been tracking the story very, very closely and joins us now. What are some of the details emerging now, Sunitra, from the CBI?
Well, basically what we now have are just details of the FIR which give exact words and the terminology that the CBI uses in indicting both Kumaramangalam Birla and also PC Parakh. What they say is that it's a 25th screening committee actually which Parakh headed that actually rejected Birla's application, Hindalco's application. They're very clear and they say while rejecting it, the 25th screening committee gave various details and various reasons for rejecting it. Now, the recommendation was very clear to give it to the PSU, that's Neyveli Lignite Corporation. Now in July, after that screening committee headed by Parakh recommends that, rejects Hindalco and Birla's application. After that, in July, there is a meeting with CBI sides between Kumaramangalam Birla and Parakh. And they say after this, the decision is overturned. Let me just tell you what words the CBI used. CBI says, Parakh, by abusing his official position as a public servant, recommended the allocation to Hindalco. Then the CBI goes on to say, Parakh's decision is without any valid basis, with sole intention to show undue favors to Hindalco, and Parakh ignored deliberations and recommendations of the screening committee. This is, of course, both parties, both the Kumaramangalam Birla and his group, they've completely rejected that. They said that they followed everything. But CBI is just saying that, look, this is what the paper shows. Screening committee headed by him says something else. After that, even though no circumstances have changed, he completely overturns decision. Another thing, even though Parakh has come out hitting CBI hard, hitting the government hard about the allegations, what's interesting is CBI also revealing now that they recovered 25 crores of unaccounted money that they're saying from Hindalco's office, and they're saying at that time itself it was unaccounted for according to the CBI's claims, and they called in the income tax office, and they have also said they've got several incriminating documents. Of course, we all have to wait and see whether this is proved in court, but CBI really upping the ante there, and these are details from the FIR.
Thanks very much for joining us with those details. Well, joining us now to discuss this, PC Parakh, the former Coal Secretary himself, is with us at this stage. Also with us, Prakash Javadekar, Rajya Sabha MP and spokesperson of the BJP, Randeep Singh Surjewala, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Prashant Bhushan, senior advocate of the Supreme Court and national executive member of the Aam Aadmi Party, Sohail Said, commentator and managing partner of Counsel Edge, and KTS Tulsi, senior advocate of the Supreme Court. Thanks very much for being with us. Mr. Parakh, first to you. A clarification, sir. Now, you've said that if you've been made a conspirator, then why hasn't the Prime Minister been named as a conspirator as well? But you've not criticized the Prime Minister for the decisions that he's taken. In other words, you're saying, why blame me? But you're not quite saying that the decisions taken by the Prime Minister were wrong.
No, I'm very clear that this decision was based on my recommendation. And I stand by the correctness of that decision, and I vouch that this was a fair and right decision, and therefore there is no case of saying that there is a conspiracy and corruption involved in this case. But for some reason, if CBI feels that there is a conspiracy, then everybody involved in this decision is a conspirator, and therefore why should they selectively say that me and Mr. Birla are the conspirators, and Prime Minister is not part of the conspiracy, when final decision was taken by the Prime Minister.
No, I understand that. But again, my question is, the decision taken by the Prime Minister in this particular case with regard to the involvement of Hindalco in this particular coal block, was that decision right or wrong? Because he was the ultimate authority.
I have consistently held that this was a right decision.
All right. So therefore, you feel that you're being unfairly targeted, right? That the Prime Minister has not been named, he should be named as well, right? So you are doing this to protect yourself because you feel that the CBI is falsely targeting you.
No, it is not intended for protection of myself. Ultimately, if any charge sheet is filed, I will defend myself. But the point is that an investigation has to be fair, and if they say that there is a conspiracy, then everybody involved in the conspiracy should be investigated.
All right. Well, let me get Prakash Javadekar to respond to that. Mr. Javadekar, the first point that he mentioned was important. He says that the decision taken by the Prime Minister wasn't necessarily wrong, but then let the inquiry process be free, right? Don't necessarily target him, don't necessarily target Birla. What about the Prime Minister itself? Whereas the BJP is pointing the finger of wrong decisions at the Prime Minister squarely. So there is a difference over here, sir.
Because I am not holding brief for the Coal Secretary. What we are saying is, see, there was the proposal already on record. An ordinance route was suggested to bring in transparency by introducing the auction process, because the world prices were going up and the demand, domestic demand was going up, and that's why this route was suggested.
Yes.
But instead of accepting that route, Prime Minister, who was the coal minister, and as the Prime Minister also, continued to delay that process, and in 4 years, 17 billion tons of coal reserve worth 50 lakh crore rupees was handed over free of cost to 140 private companies, many of them many dubious companies. So what is important is the decision of the government has neither benefited common man in way of cheap power or the state treasury where they have. So it doesn't remain a policy plank, because everybody in the know of the game was knowing that on the eve of 2009 elections, there used to be a decision taken somewhere else, conveyed to the screening committee or conveyed to through the Prime Minister, and that used to be the allotments.
Okay.
Supreme Court has very categorical, 1 minute, Supreme Court has also observed, as our observations were, that there is no comparative appraisal, that there is no claims verification, then there is no competitive appraisal, as I said, and then evaluation or due diligence.
Absolutely.
Then
No,
you
Mr.
don't
Javadekar,
do
those
anything.
points we know. We know that the process was flawed, right? We know that. But
So that is
Mr.
the
Parakh,
corruption.
let me put that to
And
Mr.
now-
Parakh. Because Mr. Parakh, from 2004 onwards in writing, and this is something for which you have been praised by the Comptroller and Auditor General, the Comptroller and Auditor General has actually praised you and said that the Coal Secretary has put it on record that unless there is a system of competitive bidding, the process is not fair. But sir, between 2004 and let's say 2009, would you agree, sir? And sir, come out and tell us the truth, because a lot of people are saying you're still careful with your words. So would you say that the system of allocations was flawed and was biased and potentially corrupt between 2004 and 2009? Mr. Parakh.
No, I wouldn't say that system was fraught between 2004 to 2008, because to best of my knowledge, as long as I was secretary, we tried to be as fair and objective as possible within the constraints of not having a open bidding system. But what I am saying, and second thing is that till such time as I left the ministry, for each block there were maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 contenders, and I also created a system of joint allocation so that we could accommodate as many possible as the bona fide contenders for a block. But after 2006, for each block there have been the claimants in the range of 50, 60, 100 and even above. Now, if you have such a large number of contenders, it is impossible to make an objective selection by creating any kind of evaluation.
Mr. Parakh, I'm saying, the way I hear this is two things. On the one hand, you say that the system which existed was flawed, but on the other hand, you say that within the constraints of that system, everything was done fairly. Whereas the entire premise of the Comptroller and Auditor General is that there was an incredible loss to the exchequer, to the nation, because of this scam. So what are you saying, sir?
No, I am in agreement with, people may dispute the figures of what Comptroller and Auditor General said, but I am certainly in agreement that if we had started the auction system, substantial revenue would have accrued to the state.
All right, fair enough. Still reserved with your words. Mr. KTS Tulsi, let me come to you next. A lot of people would say that the CBI in its investigation seems to be targeting everybody. They're targeting Kumaramangalam Birla, somebody with an international repute, and obviously in cases of corruption, reputations count for nothing. If corruption is corruption. But there is a sense that they're going after everybody, including a man who's been called the whistleblower. So is there a sense that by going after everyone, they're actually trying to dilute the case against the Prime Minister?
No, I think that this FIR is completely ill-founded. There is no basis for this FIR because it does not, according to whatever is available in the media, the FIR itself I have not seen, but I have only seen the contents of the FIR as reported in the media. It does not contain a single ingredient of the offence under the Prevention of Corruption Act. There is no illegal gratification mentioned against anybody. There is only a vague allegation of conspiracy without there being without spelling out what was the illegal act. Conspiracy is doing of an illegal act. It's agreement to do an illegal act. What was that illegal act? Merely allocation is not illegal, because you see the country was facing a lot of decline in coal production, and as a result of that the government's policy was that to boost economic growth, the private companies had to be invited to chip in for augmenting the coal production. Now, if coal production was to be augmented, and also the government's policy was that we want to narrow down the crude oil imports. For this purpose, the Coal India was unable to meet its targets. In fact, the CAG report itself says that the Coal India production losses were to the tune of 116 million metric tons.
Yes.
Now, in this policy was created by the government that the private companies will be invited to chip in and for augmenting the production.
But sir,
and
just
also
so that
the
I understand, because
augmentation
you're
of the power
bringing out the
sector.
case history that's
For this
important.
purpose,
but the essential point that
the
you're
Coal
saying is that the
Secretary, Mr. Parakh,
FIR
perhaps
against
rightly
Birla
suggested
and against
the
Parakh
route
is flawed.
of-
The FIR against Parakh and Birla is flawed. Mr. Tulsi, that's what you're saying. Okay, let me just go back to Prakash Javadekar for a moment. Now, sir, the CBI has said that they have evidence on record that it was Parakh who overturned the screening committee's decision and that the coal block was allotted to the Birlas. Now, Parakh himself doesn't deny this. He says, of course, that is the process. But what was wrong in that? I was following the rule. I was following the regulations. So, doesn't it seem that the CBI is stating the obvious and is chasing people who perhaps should not be chased?
One thing is very sure. The reality is that in this a big deal, there was monumental corruption. As pointed out by CAG, as pointed out by us, many dubious companies came in, they were allotted, they sold their things. Instead of going into the basic of all these, and Coal Ministry and the PMO Secretary and the Law Minister himself tried to influence and change and wait the report to be presented to the Supreme Court. So if government is trying for a massive cover-up, on this background, the CBI, that is what I am saying, CBI, if it is allowed to run professionally, but that is not being happening, and that's why Supreme Court has to say it's a cage parrot.